Good evening, everybody. I have 6:01 p.m. and I'm going to now call to order our City Council meeting of February 23rd, 2026. All 6 council members and 1 council member appointee are present. So would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As our first order of business, we need to make sure that we are playing with a full deck here. So we are going to swear in new council member Marcia Hunt. Mr. Hoagland, our clerk treasurer, is going to administer the oath. Council members, if you would all come over here to the side, we are going to file down and shake Marcia's hand after she has administered the oath, after Mr. Hoagland has administered the oath. Thank you.
Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Marcia Hunt,
I, Marcia Hunt,
do solemnly swear I will support
do solemnly swear I will support
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
the ordinances of the City of Anacortes,
the ordinances of the City of Anacortes,
and I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge
the duties of the office of council member
the duties of the office of council member
for the City of Anacortes
for the City of Anacortes
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, thank you, everybody. We are going to move on now to our announcements and committee reports. And as part of that, we are going to start with a mayoral proclamation recognizing March as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. Mr. Hoagland is here, and I think he would like to make some introductions before I read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the audience. It is my great pleasure to introduce a dear friend of mine, Anita Eisler. Anita has an amazing story. She is a stage 4 colon cancer survivor and also has a nonprofit organization called Colon Cancer Stars that she started to spread awareness and information related to colorectal cancer. A lot of you know my story and understand why that's an important subject to me. I'd also like to recognize one of Anita's board members is watching on our YouTube live feed, Aaron Bird. We miss you, Aaron. Wish you were here tonight. And another thing that Anita, Aaron, and I all have in common is, in addition to being super cool people, we all went to Port Angeles High School together. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to good old PA and go Riders. And with that, again, it's my great pleasure to introduce Anita.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk tonight. This makes 21 years since I was diagnosed stage 4 colon cancer back in 2005. And so I want to share just a little bit of my story to kind of, I guess, bring you up to where we are today. I went to the doctor with symptoms of colon cancer. And I was told not to worry, that it was probably just hemorrhoids, and don't worry, you don't need a colonoscopy. I was only 40 years old. A few months later, had more symptoms. I looked them up in a medical encyclopedia, not the computer, it was a medical encyclopedia. And I realized that there was no way, it was like, this is either colitis, Crohn's, or colon cancer. So I got on the phone and I called my mother because my dad had died when I was in high school, but my parents were divorced. I lived in Port Angeles, he lived in Bremerton. And I didn't really know what kind of cancer he had. We didn't talk about it. Wasn't part of his, care team. I thought maybe bone because I remember him limping. And she said, oh, he had colon cancer. And I went, oh my gosh, okay, gotta go, Mom. And I, went right back to the doctor, demanded to be referred to a GI. Went to the GI, he was lovely, just like right away. And I was thinking, oh, it's gonna take a couple more weeks to get, a colonoscopy because it took weeks to get the referral done, even though I had told her when I went back in that these are the symptoms, I have a history. So anyway, he said, no, we're gonna do it this week, and I had it, and he said, oh, you definitely have colon cancer, I didn't even biopsy it, you probably need to have surgery next week, let me walk you down to the surgeon, they were already closed, this is like a Thursday night. And at the time, my kids were 9, 11, and 12, and I was overwhelmed, but I also went home kind of just like in shock with no information. And I had my husband actually, this is horrible, but I had him tell the kids on their way home, he told my daughters, one was diving in Federal Way and one was soccer, picked them up from their sports and told them in the car, because I didn't think I could face them, because I had lost a friend 7 years before to colon cancer when she was 37, and she was my daughter's brownie teacher or brownie leader, and I thought, they're gonna think automatically, I just can't. And my son, he was too young, he didn't remember her, I thought I can, so I guess I'm just going off a little bit just about how I didn't have information. Like, how about someone says, digest it first before you spill it all out. Anyway, long story short, I got into a great team. I was a little disappointed to find out it was stage 4, but back then I didn't know anything about cancer. I didn't know that 4 was the worst. It wasn't until I, looked at my girlfriends who were nurses who I brought with me to the appointment and the look on their face. But I was one of the lucky ones. I responded really well to chemotherapy, and then I had a colon surgery, and they took 1.5 foot of my colon, and they biopsied my liver, and by this time we found out I had 7 tumors in my liver, and they were in every lobe, and so they said, you're not going to ever you won't be a resectable candidate, but you possibly can have combo if the chemo works, and so chemo worked. I got to have a resection, and they cut part of my tumors out, and then they ablated the others, and then I did more chemo, and back in 2005, it was a 5 to 8% chance if you were stage 4 that you'd make it 5 years. And I had a very positive oncologist, and I also was like, I can't die. I've got kids to raise. And I just was very lucky. But I met people along the way, and because of my family history, I should have been screened in my 30s, but I did not know that. So that was lesson 1 for me. Didn't blame my doctor, but I was very upset that I didn't know that. Number 2, I did have on my sheet, I did put my history that my dad had cancer. My doctor didn't look at any of my family history, and that was apparent on something else that had happened. And so there again, I learned you have to be your own advocate. And so the first thing I wanted to do, because I was a 3rd parent at my children's school diagnosed under the age of screening, and back then it was 50, I said, I want to bring awareness. We have all this pink, which is lovely. Breast cancer has done wonderful things. They raised a lot of money. They have a lot more drugs now for patients and more treatments available. Nobody wants to talk about colon cancer because it's our bottom. Well, we all have colons, and I just decided we're going to talk about this, and our color's blue, which at least it's not an ugly color. It could be brown, you guys, but no, it's blue, so we've got a good color. And so I wanted to do an awareness day at my kids' school, and they went through a K through 8 Catholic school, so they had to wear uniforms. So I went in and talked to the principal, and she said, "Oh, Anita, I don't know if we can do this. There's other families with other cancers, and it would be kind of, favoring your cancer." And I said, colon cancer is one of the only one that's preventable with on-time screening. And so that's a big difference. Some of the other cancer, like breast cancer, is great if a mammogram may find a tumor, but it's not taking it out. With a colonoscopy, they can actually take out a polyp before it becomes cancerous, so it makes it preventable. Now we have a lot more tests than we had in 2005. We've got blood tests in the work, we've got Cologuard, we've got FIT tests, and we still have that gold standard colonoscopy. So what has changed in 20 years? I hate to say, but not enough. The people 65 and older are getting screened. The screenings, they're up to date. But the younger people, we took over 20 years to get the age lowered to 45, and it's not enough. For people under 50, it's the #1 cancer killer now. And the highest rate, people born in the 90s have quadruple the risk of rectal cancer and triple the risk of colon cancer, or double the risk of colon cancer. So this is something that we need to talk about with our families and our kids and our college kids, not to be afraid of symptoms. So there's screening cards back there. Please take them. March is Awareness Month, and Dress in Blue Day, which started just at my little kid's school, is now they do it even in other countries. They do it in Canada. It went national in 2008, and now they do it all over. And so I'd love it if you guys, that first Friday in March, wear blue. If you're a social media person, tag us, # colon cancer stars. You can go to our website. We work very close with the state task force and do health and education. I have a big inflatable colon we take around, and a polyp costume. I'll even wear that. I'm about educating everyone, and I don't really care how old you are, because we all have a colon. Kids, we potty train kids and we talk about it. We just need to keep the conversation, and thank you so much.
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Young.
If you would, I have friends that have passed away because of colon cancer, and I think if we were watching any of the stars that you see, some of the younger stars that you've been hearing about recently have died from colon cancer. It's been a shock for everyone, but it's also a huge reminder about getting checked and not assuming that because you are active or fit or any of those things that think that you are buff that you get an exclusion, and you really don't. And so, people of color in particular are very high on the scale of also colon cancer, and the goal is to try to get beyond the stigma where we're talking about it and realizing that, like you said, and I loved how you said it, everyone has a colon, everyone. And so we got to figure out how we do it. One thing that I'm not sure that you mentioned that I think would also be important is how would people like me and others who care donate toward continuing trying to make this awareness very public. It really is about trying to figure out how we have some that helps us reach those people who really need to hear it. So could you tell us the name of your nonprofit or where?
It's Colon Cancer Stars, and it's www.colonstars.org is our.
Colon Stars or Colon Cancer Stars?
Gosh, this is awful that I don't know. It's Colon Cancer Stars. I think it shows
Colon
up both
Stars.
on the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, colonstars.org.
Yeah, and on our website,
Okay.
you can donate on there. And we also volunteers, people, we always need people to share their stories. And if you want the giant inflatable colon to come to an event, a health fair, I'm here and ready to come out. And, I want to get all over the state, not just, I live in Woodinville, but I go to Port Angeles, I'll go anywhere, so.
Thank you. And I just wanted to acknowledge Marcia has already, in the 15 minutes she's been on council, had the document ready to go forward. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. To a person, all of us have been affected by cancer one way or another, and some of us certainly by colorectal cancer. And so in recognition of that, I have the following proclamation, which I will read. Whereas the City of Anacortes is committed to promoting the health and well-being of its residents and supporting efforts that raise awareness of preventable disease. Whereas colorectal cancer remains a significant public health concern nationwide, with more than 158,850 individuals in the United States expected to be diagnosed this year, and more than 55,230 deaths anticipated. Whereas in Washington state alone, nearly 3,300 individuals are expected to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer annually, and approximately 1,160 residents will lose their lives to the disease. Whereas colorectal cancer is one of the most preventable and treatable forms of cancer when detected early, yet 1 in 3 adults ages 45 and older are not up to date with recommended screening guidelines. Whereas March is recognized as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and Dress in Blue Day provides an opportunity for individuals and communities to show support for patients, survivors, caregivers, and families that are affected by colorectal cancer, while also encouraging education, prevention, and early detection efforts. Now, therefore, I, Ryan Walters, Mayor of the City of Anacortes, hereby proclaim March 6, 2026, as Dress in Blue Day in the City of Anacortes, and proclaim the month of March 2026 as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. All residents, businesses, community organizations, and institutions are encouraged to wear blue in recognition of this observance, to engage in conversations about colorectal cancer prevention, and to help promote the importance of screening and early detection in saving lives. Proclaimed this 23rd day of February, 2026. All right, we will proceed with our council announcements. Last week, we began to encounter a utility billing issue. So some you may have already encountered this. City utility customers, water, sewer, garbage, may have experienced duplicate charges through our online payment portal. We apologize for this, and the Finance Department is working quickly to issue refunds to affected customers. However, there are some notes here. Customers who paid by credit card should see a credit for the duplicate payment by February 20th, so that should have already occurred. Customers who paid via bank account, though, will need to contact the Finance Department to discuss refund options because they can't initiate simply a refund. So those phone numbers are 360-293-1909 and email utilitybilling@anacorteswa.gov or come in here to City Hall and we will get that taken care of. We apologize again for that error. I want to remind our viewing audience about the Downtown Streetscape Survey. You can scan that QR code, or you can find this on our website, and it is open for, I think, through the end of this week. If you're interested in telling us what you think about downtown Anacortes, the survey is a great way to do that. We do still have openings on various boards and commissions. If you go to anacorteswa.gov/160, you can find all the boards and commissions that are available. You can learn about them. Even if there is not currently a vacancy on those boards and commissions, you can submit your interest. That will go into a bank, and we will select from that when a vacancy occurs. So please learn about the ways you can contribute. Check that out on the website. feel free to apply or send us any questions. The Anacortes Police Department is still offering the Citizen Police Academy. This is expected to start in early March on weekday evenings. So if you're interested in this, go to anacorteswa.gov/310 to sign up. And we have been building out our website with respect to projects. So rather than asking strangers on Facebook about a city project, we would recommend that you would go to this website where our active city projects are listed. If you don't find it, just simply let us know. We're trying to provide some structured information and consistent information about each one of those projects. Now that includes construction projects, street projects, but it also includes projects like plans, like the ACFL plan or the comprehensive plan. So check out that website, anacorteswa.gov/projects, and that page is also available from the top line menu on any page on the city website. We want to make sure that you get that information out. This is one of the ways that we are pushing that out, and there will be others. And now we will hear from a couple of city council committees that met in the past week, starting with Parks and Rec.
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Fantini.
Yes, Parks and Rec met last week. It was Director Lunsford, myself, Carl Wolfswinkel from the Senior Center, Nicole Johnston, and Bob Vokes. Of course, we'll have a much larger meeting now that we next time, now that we have a full council. I know that Ms. Hunt and Mr. Young will be joining us next time. A couple of the highlights. We discussed the meals program from the Senior Center. I'm sure most are aware, but for those that aren't, the county is no longer going to be providing our meals program after July 1st. So the Northwest Regional Council is currently in a request for proposal process, and 3 parties have submitted bids with deadlines coming up on March 4th and April 1st. And also, the Anacortes Senior Center Foundation has expressed interest in supporting the meals effort as well. So hopefully we'll have some good things coming forward on that. March for Meals is also coming up in March, and the community can expect to see several events tied to that program. And I would say that there has never been a more important time than to support that program than right now, when the county is going to be cutting that funding July 1st. So just keep that in mind. Also, regarding funding, talking about the county funding for the Senior Center. So yes, our city does fund part of the Senior Center, but so does the county. The county typically contributes about $105,000 annually toward Senior Center operations. Now, after some adjustments, the net benefit to the city is about $65,000. The county is reviewing funding options at this time, and in Anacortes, obviously there's a lot of interest around that subject. Mayor Walters and Director Lunsford have been in very positive discussions with county leadership, which is continuing a long history of cooperation between our jurisdictions. But of course, as always, if you'd like to be heard on this issue, feel free to reach out to the county commissioners. We also got an update on the Ship Harbor Boardwalk. So I know all of council is aware, but for those of you out there that are not, a king tide in December of 2022 washed out a portion of that boardwalk, creating a new estuary channel between the wetland and the beach. With support from the Port of Anacortes and the Samish Indian Nation, the Parks Department is proposing to rebuild the boardwalk and improve the pathway from the ferry terminal to the beach. They're now at about a 15% design plans that include a new boardwalk section on diamond piers with pressure-treated wood or fiber-reinforced plastic grating, railings and stairs where needed, a paved path, an ADA-accessible viewing platform. And to fund this, the city is currently applying for an RCO, which stands for Recreation Conservation Office grant, and also an ALEA, which stands for Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account grant, and a matching wastewater. Didn't write that one down. Anyway, in addition to pursuing non-state funding through the Anacortes Parks Foundation and local partners, that WWRP grant should help as well. Also, the mayor called out earlier about the projects page. Parks Department wanted you to know that they are updating that page. That page has always existed on our website, but the mayor is definitely, and rightly so, placing a new emphasis so that we can get appropriate and accurate updates out to the community. Also, we talked about staffing in the Parks Department. So Parks has eliminated one maintenance position due to budget constraints, and the department is increasingly relying on donations, private donations for repairs and maintenance. You know, as we are in a budget crunch, that tends to happen, and that is not a sustainable model. We are very fortunate to have generous local donors, but I think also one of the things that came up for me in this is as staffing is being reduced in various parts of the city, I think it is really important for us to recognize not just those that are no longer there, but the folks that are still there and being asked to do even more with even less. So as you are participating in places like the parks, the library, please remember that the staff that are still there are now carrying even more of the burden. Couple more just quick updates. Cranberry Lake. So I know there is a lot of interest on that potential boat launch, or depending on who you talk to, a giant 300-foot concrete structure that'll be floating in the middle. Well, neither of those things are actually going to be happening. Our Parks Department did a really great job of going through the pros, cons, seeing what was possible there, and they have determined that there is no possibility to add any kind of boat launch at this time. So that project is essentially being moved off from. We talked a little bit about the forest plan. I'll spare you that since that's going to be before us here tonight. We also talked about the West 6th Park. Again, due to budget restraints, private funding is going to most likely have to be the solution if we're going to have that West 6th Park there. We also talked about the skate park. So you'll remember that council did approve design, et cetera. They're going to be bringing forward a contract for the bathroom and parking lot improvements this spring by the skate park. And also the Depot Plaza construction for that expansion is expected to begin in March, and the goal is to have it ready for the farmers market in May. So that would be very exciting. And then finally, just one shout out, on March 10th, there will be an open house at the Senior Center where the community can ask questions and learn more about all of these projects and more. So please be sure on March 10th to come out to the Senior Center. Our park staff will be there to answer any questions that you have, and you can provide feedback on a lot of the projects that we'll be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. And according to my notes, that was the only council committee that has met in the past week. Any other announcements or other committee reports? Hearing none. We will move on to public comment. I have 2 people signed up for public comment. However, the topic is forest plan. So if you're all right, we'll take that comment when we hit the forest plan agenda item, which is the first under other business. Is there any public comment on any other item? Are you raising your hand? Yes. All right, come up, step, adjust the microphone there for your height. We have eliminated the button, so there's nothing to press.
I was looking.
Just provide your name for the record.
My name is Wim Hoopermans.
And your neighborhood.
My neighborhood is...
We're doing things differently now.
It's south of Storvik Park.
Perfect. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I will speak here tonight twice, but we just heard about Ship Harbor, the Ship Harbor Interpretive Preserve, and it was created by 3 parties: the Port of Anacortes, the City of Anacortes, and Evergreen Islands. And now hearing that we are going to rebuild, I kind of would want Evergreen Islands, of which I am a board member, would be a party of that.
Mr. Hoopermans, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but if you could speak closer to the microphone, that would be great.
I will improve.
That's great, thanks.
Was I clear before, or should I repeat something?
I think we get to the part where the port and the city and...
There were three parties in the creation of the Ship Harbor Interpretive Preserve. That's the city, the port, and Evergreen Islands. And so I think Evergreen Island, I as a board member of Evergreen Islands want to stay in a party in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments at this stage? Mr. Franciac, is there anybody online that we?
Nobody online
Okay.
with a raised hand.
Thank you. All right, then we will proceed to the consent agenda. There are two items on the consent agenda, the minutes and approval of claims. Council willing to entertain a motion for approval?
Mayor Walters,
Mr. McDougall.
I move approval of consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. No discussion is allowed on the consent agenda, so we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The consent agenda items are approved. All right, that brings us to other business, and our first item of other business is the Anacortes Community Forest Lands Plan. Mr. Vokes.
Good evening, Mayor Walters, members of the council, members of the audience. Thank you, Darby. Where would I be without Darby? So you're probably all aware we've spent a couple of years working on this forest plan update. The last time we brought it to you was November 1st of 2021, as it says there on the cover of the current plan. And we committed then to getting a, 5-year update done. And that's a self-imposed timeline. There's nothing that requires us to do this plan. This, of course, is separate from the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. This plan has been around for decades now and hasn't changed a whole lot in terms of its content, but I'm going to run through a few things here, and of course, it is your meeting, so you'll interrupt me whenever you want to and ask questions. It's no problem. So like I mentioned, a couple of years ago, we started working on the update for this plan. Wanted to give ourselves plenty of time. Everything about this update has happened in-house. There's been no outside hire. We've had some volunteers do some work on it, certainly. And they don't know this, and hopefully it won't make them too angry, but I think I saw at least 3 members of the Forest Advisory Board here, and I'd love for you to stand up and take some credit for the work that you've been doing. Joanne York Gilmore, that's our chair, Kit Gerwells, and of course, the senior member of the team, who's been on the forest board for both my runs here at the city, Brian Wetcher. Thank you very much, the 3 of you, for all the work you've been doing on this. In addition to their monthly meetings, there was about a 3-month spree where they had an extra meeting each month. So they put a lot of time into this, and I'm grateful as a community member and a staff member. I'm not going to bother reading the slides because I figure you can do that yourselves. But as you can see, the topics that were touched on from public comment are the ones we would expect to hear about. Of course, the Little Cranberry boat launch has been a very hot topic over the last few years here at City Hall and in the forest lands. And as you will see, there is no reference to that boat launch in the current draft of the plan. The biggest change you're going to see with the plan is the formatting. And Darby really loves it when I thank her publicly, but she laid this thing out and has just done a remarkable job, and I appreciate it. I know I've heard from several members of the community who also appreciate it, so the document should be a lot easier to follow, a lot easier to find things, and it just looks a lot nicer. So formatting is really the biggest difference you're going to see in terms of what's in this plan. I'm just going to touch on a few things that we've updated. We now have an executive summary Thank you, Kit Gerwells, for providing us with that. That's something we have not had in the past. We've got one now, and I think it reads great and does a nice job of getting you into the plan. The introduction, while it says to reflect changes that have occurred since the last plan update, that's a lot of the external changes and different things that have happened in the forest lands, and it also talks about the process that we've gone through to get to this point of bringing it to council. There aren't sweeping policy changes that we're cleverly hiding in here from the council. We've improved some maps, tried to make it a little easier to find things. You can see a nice version of our conservation easement program, which, for those of us that have been around since the beginning of that program, it's been a remarkable thing. And on top of our many layers of regulatory protection out there, we asked the community to voluntarily pay for another layer of protection, and they did it a lot faster than I think any of us predicted happening. And then we've got our management areas, and these have been the same, I think, since the initial plan. We lay those out with a map ahead of discussing them now, so you can get some sense of what you're about to look at and what's about to be discussed. Okay, so some highlights of the new plan, or the updated plan. Little Cranberry Lake. As you can see, the boat launch is not here. When you read through the plan, certainly the motivation to continue to explore ADA options throughout the forest lands are there. Little Cranberry Lake has been kind of a focus point of that with the platform, the view platform, when you cross the dam and head out the east side of the lake. So we're not going to give up on ADA improvements and accessibility in general. We're just going to look at it, different options as they come forward, and as it was mentioned before by TJ, people will come forward with donations, and sometimes they would like to see very specific things happen. That was the case with the boat launch. Proposed trail changes. The thing I thought that would be the real hot button of this update, and I've been working here a couple of years, was the discussion to close a portion of Trail 101. Now, 101, as you can see on the map here, that's the trail that goes along the western shore of Little Cranberry. And for those of you familiar with it, you'll know why we're talking about this section, because there's really a portion of that trail that is essentially underwater. And we need to be a little careful about our trails going into and underwater. And so we wanted to talk about the potential closure of that section of trail. Now, closing trails, as you know, is a years-long, complicated process that not everybody is always excited about. I wanted to just read quickly a quote from the plan, the draft plan, that says, "Park staff will work with the Forest Advisory Board to explore options to close a portion of Trail 101. This should be done at points between the junctions with Trails 131 and 105. So I carefully tried to phrase this with some call them weasel words, fans of government, that we were going to explore options with the Forest Board if the council felt like they wanted to get behind that. I didn't want to try to wedge the council into a corner of a trail closure without some more information and a little more community feedback. I would guess that you're going to get that community feedback, but we haven't gotten a lot of it on this specific issue yet. So that's just a heads up. The other one, the highlighted Trail 106 in purple, that's the little connector that gets you from Little Cranberry up out towards Big Beaver. And that's a trail that all we want to do there is elevate it. So basically we got to move it away from from the critical area. And that design is going to be important because that's a trail that has both equestrians and bicycles on it. So it's not something we can just, move away from the water and hope for the best. We've got to be able to support some weight on that.
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. To that point, Mr. Vokes, thank you. There was a trail at on the south border of Little Cranberry Lake, and I remember that was closed several years ago, and it was a little bit, it was, it doesn't matter what it was then, but what it is now, I believe it was a successful trail closure. Is that true?
I'll call it mostly successful at this point. You did, the council voted to close that trail with the last plan approval. And so we've had it signed. We've had to replace the signs. We've had to redo what we call our forest landscaping, where we try to obliterate trails. We walk that shoreline every once in a while just to double check. It's been a while since I've been on it. Certainly for some people, it's their favorite place to go fishing. But I would say it's gaining ground on the closure. So basically, yeah, you're talking about Trail 132, which was that entire southern shoreline of Little Cranberry.
And my recollection of that trail was it really was a scramble. Part of it was in the water. It was not very passable. And my knowledge of the yellow section here on the map is that some of it does go in the water. And again, it's just eroded. And to me, it seems a likely candidate, especially as you can get around that area really successfully already. So I can see I can see how that makes sense based on the topography and the deteriorating condition of the trail.
Sure, and there's been some amount of public comment about wanting us to get off the shores of the lakes. It's hard to do because when you pull up to a lake, where do you want to go? You want to go to the water. So there are some challenges there. But yeah, I think we've made some progress on 132. Talk about some other ACFL projects. The Motka protocol at the A Avenue dump, I think that was just last week that you got a pretty good briefing on that. So I won't worry about that right now. Whistle Lake Dam. As many of you know, there's a 100-plus-year-old dam at Whistle Lake that during, was it 2020? 2020 or 2021, John has a better memory than I do. All of a sudden, we're reading the Seattle Times one day, and we've made the list of the 50 worst dams in the state of Washington, without any heads up on making that list. But we read about it, so we started talking with DOE. As you probably all know, DOE is responsible for permitting and the ongoing inspections of all the dams in the state of Washington, private or public. And some FEMA money became available to work on that dam. Now, what the required work is, we don't know yet, because through the process of working on that FEMA grant, a couple of things have happened. One is we need Skagit County to add that dam specifically to its hazard mitigation list. And for reasons that are beyond my understanding, and I say this as a former employee of Skagit County, that hasn't been done, but I can promise you that Logan Lee is on that and working hard on that. The other interesting element that I don't think...
Mr. Vokes?
Yes, sir.
Maybe we can eliminate that a little bit. I thought that the update to the natural hazards mitigation plan simply hasn't come forward yet. Is that consistent with your understanding?
I think that's one thing that hasn't happened, yeah.
Is there... Well, if there's more, we can talk about it offline, I guess. But I didn't understand any nefarious intent there.
No.
Okay, good.
No nefarious. I say that as a card-carrying, son of a former commissioner and a former employee of the county. I've got a lot of ties there. I wish them nothing but the best.
I didn't know we had cards made for that, but
yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Proceed.
Yeah, but we need their help to get this forward. Now, the other complication is FEMA. And I'm not going to waste your time by discussing any federal government challenges right now, because I think there's plenty of them, and we don't need to waste our time with that. Heart Lake parking lot, this is our shoreline restoration program. We did the planning process back in 09, 010, and we are finally starting to work on that project. We never adopted that plan officially into the forest plan, so that work is happening kind of separate from the forest plan. I think part of that was because we combined the Parks Commission and the Forest Board at that time and kind of made it a combined project. So the biggest capital improvement that we have proposed right now is a grant funded. Again, it's an ALEA grant that Mr. Fantini did a nice job of explaining earlier, that we got half of it covered. It's a one-to-one match. The other money, we've got some park impact fees and I think maybe some REIT money and some private donations to come up with the other match. But we just had the kickoff meeting with our environmental consultant and our engineering firm, and next week I'm going to be out there with the Samish Nation archaeologists working on the start of the cultural resource survey. And then we'll be working with the Samish on our plant selections and that sort of thing as well. So it's a very exciting project to improve that parking lot that's just been kind of a gravel moonscape for as long as I can remember. Another thing that happened recently was we've got some parcels, as you can see in this map, that have, in between Mayor Walters and our planning director, you can probably explain it better than I can, is it my understanding that these parcels were in the urban growth area, but we're now annexing them into the city of Anacortes? Is that a...
Almost. They were not in the urban growth area. Now they are in the urban growth area.
Okay.
And next we will annex them into the city of Anacortes.
Okay, great. I know there was some concern from the public when they initially saw that was going on. They were worried about that, but it's a good thing for all of us, a very good thing. Management authority. We are working on codifying lots of things here at City Hall now, and we need to do that with our forest plan to a level that makes it a little easier for like the APD to be able to write a ticket for, like right now, dog off leash is a citywide thing. So that ticket can be written. Motorcycle rules tend to be ACFL policy and not city code. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on once we get this plan, this particular draft, passed. Levels of protection. This is a new chapter. And this chapter was donated to us. Friends of the ACFL board member Jessica Redmond, who's an environmental consultant, she wrote this all up for us, and we really appreciate it. We actually had to pull some of it out because her level of detail was pretty extraordinary. But it's just trying to make clear to the community that anything that we try to do out there that has with relocating a trail or putting a bench in, whatever it might be, we start with our local critical areas ordinance and wetland buffers, and it goes from there, right? It can go to the state, it can go to the federal level, depending on what the project is and what we're trying to do. So there is a lot of public process required for anything. Using the Little Cranberry boat launch as the example, even if we would have ended up coming up with the idea we thought was the greatest in the world, it would have been subject to a lengthy and detailed permitting process. Law enforcement. We have long wanted a park ranger in our parks and our forest lands. I don't think that's news to any of you or to people in the audience. I know we were, talking about it back in the mid-90s. We understand the current budget situation. We don't think that this is magically going to create the financial opportunity to hire a fully commissioned park ranger. As we have worked with Chief Floyd and his staff, we realize that for this ranger to really do the work we need this person to do, they need to be an employee of the Anacortes Police Department and not of the Anacortes Parks Department. So, that creates some interesting discussions and who's supervising who and who answers to who and a lot of things like that. Right now, there's no way we have any money for a position like this, but we feel like it's important to get in the plan. And I guess if I had one wish that I could wish for in the forest lands before my time is up here at the city, it would be that we added a full-time park ranger. And that person would of course work in the parks as well as the forest lands. We have also added a lot of detail about our fire protection. Thank you to Chief Harris for adding that. Details like, things that we know as staff, but we weren't necessarily communicating very well to the public, like the annual fee we pay to DNR to make sure that when we call, they come running, and they always have, and they're going to continue to. And also, all of our firefighters are, in fact, trained and equipped to fight wildfires. And as well as, it's usually the Mount Erie folks that come next and mixed in with the DNR. And, we've had some drills over the years, and those folks have done an extraordinary job of getting the job done. So we're going to continue doing that. We're also emphasizing the education portion of wildfire and how people can do defensible space or other programs to protect their homes. I know Josie's here, who's the executive director of the Friends of the ACFL. Chief Harris has got people that'll go see it. The Skagit Conservation District forester will come visit people for free. I've gone to several homes and talked about different things. So there's a lot of us here that are willing to go to people's homes and talk with them and talk about wildfire mitigation. Just a reminder of our partners. Certainly the Conservation Easement Program, the Skagit Land Trust, and the Friends of the Anacortes Community Forest Lands. That's been a great program. Every once in a while the Land Trust will call us up and want to go do an inspection to make sure we haven't done anything we're not supposed to do out there. And the other thing that we have finally added to our plan is a message from Chairman Tom Wooten of the Samish Indian Nation. As you are all aware, and I think the audience is too, over the last 10 years or so, we've been working really hard as a city to work with the Samish on things and meet regularly and discuss things and do things like our cultural resource survey, which they just finished at the Ben Root Skate Park, and we're now going to do at Hart Lake. That's my little corner of the world. We've been working on a lot of interpretive signage improvements with them. We've changed the name of a park. There's things other departments are doing that I'm not in the loop on, but anyway, we are looking forward to an even stronger bond with the Samish and how that might enhance and protect our community forest lands. Motor vehicles, we have added some language, maybe exploring some options. Or do our current regulations make sense? Does the CC limitation make sense? Do the trails we have open to bikes, the trails we have closed to bikes, do those all make sense? Do I get complaints about motorcycles? I sure do. But I also get complaints about other things, off-leash dogs being probably the number one. And motorcycles, when they're operated incorrectly, they can be the loudest thing and do the biggest damage in the shortest amount of time. and it takes away from the people that are out there doing it right and following the rules. So we wanted to create some opportunities in here to look at, okay, what are our rules working? Do we know how well they're working without law enforcement in the forest lands? And what can we possibly do to maybe help them work better? And John Meehan, who's on our trail committee, is our motorized representative, and he's got some ideas on that, and I'm guessing on the formal public hearing for this that you'll have a chance to hear a little bit more from him. E-bikes. This is a brand new policy that was not in the November 21 plan. We kind of brought the e-bike thing to council at that point with that plan, and council said, we want to get a recommendation from the Forest Advisory Board. So took it back to the board. We ended up doing a year-long study with the Friends of the ACFL. We picked, I think it was 6 different spots in the forest lands that only 3 people knew where they were, and essentially at that point, Steve Phillips was our forest lands tech, and Asa Dean was the executive director of the Friends, and those 2 basically went out monthly, photographed those sites from all different angles, studied them, wrote this little narrative, and did that for a year. We didn't see that e-bikes were making a dramatic difference in the forest lands. What we have observed is typically the people who are riding e-bikes in the forest lands are people that have been riding out there for 30 plus years anyway. They know how to ride mountain bikes, they know our trails, and they do pretty well taking care of them. The people that are new to e-bikes, I see most of them riding along outside my office window during the summer months. Does that mean there's no negative impacts from e-bikes in the forest lands? Absolutely not. Every user group has negative impacts in one way or another. That's why you pay the Parks Department to take care of the trails. But essentially what we did was the class 1s, which you have to pedal to go forward, we treat those like bicycles, and those follow bicycle rules. The 2s and 3s, which can be self-propelled, we treat as motorcycles, essentially. And so they have to follow those rules. So that's where we are on the e-bike study, and this is a brand new part of the plan. This was not in there in November of 21. Another thing that is brand new is a science chapter. We've not had that before, and that was a big request from the community. And fortunately, we have the fantastic people at Transition Fidalgo who are citizen scientists out there doing amazing monitoring of all kinds of different things. I'm hoping at some point in the next few months to have them come and speak directly to you about the work they've done, just because they really are due that kind of recognition and to have a chance to communicate directly with the mayor and the council. So we've got a whole chapter in here now that talks about their studies and the kinds of data that they are now compiling. And it's really been a great step forward for us. We have done our best over the last couple of years to keep things as visible as we can. The process, you go to our website, you can find the plan draft. I've circled the SEPA application down below the Forest Lands Plan Update 2026 because Darby, once again, just because I like to say her name, has gone through and done the whole red line out of everything, all the words in the plan that got changed from the old version to the new format. So you can go see what that looks like if you go into our SEPA application, because we included that with that. And with that, I will thank you for your time. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions at this time. I just want to remind the community that a public hearing will certainly be held on this Monday, March 16th at 6 p.m. right here in the City Hall Council Chambers.
Mr. Young.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Vokes, and also the Parks and Rec Department for another wonderful presentation. I mean, I've said it before, and I think it's important to continue to say how much I appreciate, and I won't speak for the rest of council, but I believe they do, the details that you go in, the anticipation of issues that you bring forward, and the effort to make sure that everyone is heard and everyone is at the table. I really find that extraordinary, refreshing. I do appreciate the thought of as keeping ADA compliance as much as we can in our efforts to open up the forest lands or open up, parks and recs, just to make sure that everybody can. I mean, part of our the demographic of our town are people that are older as well, and even people that are here in town that may be more challenged with mobility, to make sure that they also have a chance at the park and to enjoy the thing that we call home. You know, I personally have, being in a very bad accident and neurological stuff that happened as I worked my way back over 10 years. It's still a leap. And, what I love about this town is the vistas, the beauty of what we're trying to preserve. But what makes it special for me is the idea that we are intentionally trying to make sure that when possible, not always possible, but when possible, we're making it accessible for everyone that we can that may choose to participate at this point. So I really wanted to say thank you for that and how much I really appreciate that. And as a council member and public servant, part of my role, I believe, because I am sympathetic to it. I've just got an e-bike last year, okay? And it's a level 1. I want to be clear in case you see me out there. It's a level 1. And, but, but without it, I wouldn't be able to traverse as much as I am. And, so sometimes when you don't have those challenges, it takes a unique person to try to see the opportunities that others may have with trying to make sure that we bring this forward. And again, I just want to thank you guys for just such a stellar job of that, and the city, and for trying its best to make sure that we're always reaching the most that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Council, we have this item marked with an asterisk inviting public comment. Do you want to take public comment at this point? Yes. All right, we have 2 people signed up on the list, and we'll also take comment from anybody else who wants to raise their hand. But let's get started with Mark Nyhart.
Mark Nyhart, Ward 2. I'm Christine McClellan McGrath minion. So, Anacortes residents, taxpayers, voters, ratepayers, city council, and mayor. Promises made, promises kept, or not. What an opportunity. In the fall of 2025, the council publicly promised the residents, voters, taxpayers, ratepayers, the owners, they are the owners, the financiers of Anacortes, a better, open, transparent, and respectful public comment process. This forest plan clearly is not an example of this promise. Apparently, it seems that people can be in the same room, listening to the same data, and come to different conclusions. Fair enough, that's what happens. So with that, the forest plan did not address many public comments. Made over a year, 2 sets of comments. It did not have a documented process that one could read from beginning to end. It did not have any published criteria for evaluating the public comments. It did not allow public comments on the draft being presented to you tonight, over a year and a half of a proposed schedule date. The ACFL can survive another year without this plan. Public trust in the city and the council, well, that is another thing. I urge the council to place the 2026 forest plan on hold until November 2027. I urge the council to develop a new public comment process during the rest of 2026. The 2026 forest plan can be the first test case of the new process. The council, the residents, the voters, taxpayers, ratepayers, us, the owners, we are the owners and the financiers of the city of Anacortes, need a formal, scalable public comment process that is transparent, understandable, and respectful. Comments should not be treated as annoying noise, but as valuable data that should be respectfully responded to and then used in any decision or analysis. Port Townsend apparently is a town that is known for public involvement in city decisions and future direction. Why can't Anacortes have the same? It can and should. So what say you, City of Council? Promises made, promises kept, or not? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nyhart. Next up, I've got Richard Mellon.
Richard Mellon. I live in the Skyline neighborhood.
Thank you. You might need to get a little bit closer to the microphone there.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My purpose is to underscore the plan's stated intention to consistently dedicate resources to maintaining the trails of our community forest lands. I'm a 10-year resident of Anacortes and fortunate in being able to regard our forests as a backyard, albeit one that I share with thousands of others. I'm a member of Friends of the Forest and a volunteer crew leader with Washington Trails Association. With over 18 years of experience in building and maintaining hiking and multi-use trails in our state, including here on Fidalgo Island. At the risk of being obvious, trails are not self-maintaining. While we might want to regard trails as features of the natural environment, they are, in fact, human-created structures. And like our roads and buildings, they need to be consistently maintained for the purposes of safety and sustainability. Fallen trees, overgrown brush, overflowing water, accumulation of mud, tread erosion, all require attention to keep trails safe and enjoyable for users. Attending to 52 miles of trails, some of which are less than well designed, others beat up by over or inappropriate use, far outstrips the capabilities of Parks Department staff. And while we do benefit from the contributions of community volunteers, such resources are not a solution by themselves. Effective maintenance requires experienced organization, oversight, and support of activities, and consequently, financial resources. I strongly encourage you to recognize the need for ongoing financial support of maintaining our trails as you consider this latest edition of the Forest Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. I'll remind the audience that we have a formal public hearing scheduled for Monday, March 16th at 6 p.m., at which we'll take any comments. But if anybody else has comments at this time, we'll take them right now as well.
Good evening, Council. My name is Wim Hoopermans. I live in Ward 2, and I speak to you as a board member of Evergreen Islands. Evergreen Islands would like you to also add a 30-year comment period As you see tonight, you have already like a couple of comments in your packet. You've heard a bit more here. And now that we see the draft, it will undoubtedly spark many more comments. With that, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Take your time.
Brian Wetcher, Forest Park Lane. I've seen a few of these plans. As a matter of fact, I believe all of them. I'm not going to speak to the issue of public comment or public input. I believe there was quite a bit, and I sat through quite a few of meetings where we had an audience of about 5 or 7 that had been specifically scheduled for public comment on this plan and going forward on this plan with public input without a structured document yet. So I would refer you back as council members to the record, and I would refer you to all of those public comments there and to take them very seriously. But on the other hand, I would refer the plan to you as an excellent step into the 21st century. Specifically, the formatting and organization is brought forward so that it is clear and understandable, and the empowerment of the comprehensive plan is clear under the statute and regulatory provisions displayed within the document. I think we have a very clear document that is flexible, and as you well know, in being flexible, all of our comprehensive plans can be revised on an annual basis. I believe the structure of this document is extremely important to reflect the flexibility going forward into the 21st century. Those things that we need in the future can be included in this document because of the structure of the document. I believe this is a good step forward. Please read it. Please make sure you're familiar with all parts of it, so that the public comment that you receive can be received in a pertinent manner, so that you understand what the public is speaking about. Sometimes I don't, and I've spent a lot of time out in the woods. So thank you very much. I hope that you can bring this to fruition in a way that the community adopts.
Thank you, Mr. Wetcher. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item.
Mayor Walters.
Mr. Fantini.
Sorry, when you had asked for public comment, I was
Oh,
going
yes.
to reserve mine until after.
Jumping
the
a little
public
bit
had-
ahead there.
I just had a couple.
Council, if anybody but Mr. Fantini would like to speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I just had a kind of an observation. One, I don't think that, so public comment, public process, I do feel that's something that's never going to be quite perfect or enough. But I feel like we cannot let perfection be the enemy of progress. So there's a lot in here that I feel is a really good step forward. And I am curious, though, I think that the time cycle for renewal is every 5 years. Is that correct? So do we, I guess my question would be, do we just visit this once every 5 years? Or is this something where, like with other things, if we see a correction that needs to come up, we can pull it and work on it again? Or do we have to wait? Because I feel like when we make such progress forward, a lot of times we can forget to revisit it again before.
Yeah, staff has chosen to put a 5-year on this. I mean, with the director and talking with our elected leadership. But I don't think there's anything that prevents us from discussing any forest policy at any point. If there's specific things you would like brought before you and really dig down in the weeds, you know, we answer the mayor's call, and if he'd like us to do that, we can do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no external statute requiring updates on 5-year schedule or any other schedule. Since it's not part of the comprehensive plan, we're not constrained by those rules. So, yeah, I think your point is well taken. Council, any other comments?
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Moulton?
Thanks. I just have one question. In the water management section, it says that Whistle Lake, Heart Lake, and Little Cranberry Lake are backup supplies of water in case of an emergency. I was aware of Whistle Lake. It's very hard for me to picture drinking any water out of Little Cranberry. Treat it as it may be. Is that, I mean, that's true?
I mean, it's a wide swath of, depending on our emergency situation. I know we've had a drill recently where we deployed a pump into Heart Lake to start filling tank trucks with fresh water. Now, is that going to be potable when it arrives at your house? No, you're going to have to do some boiling. But yes, those fresh water supplies are in fact emergency backups. Certainly, the dam at Whistle was that was our first one, right? So it's more of an extreme emergency situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Walters?
Ms. Hunt?
I just would like to pause and say thank you to the volunteers who staff the Forest Advisory Board for their years of working on this plan, and all the members of the public who took time to come and offer feedback, and the citizen scientists who have been out collecting longitudinal data to inform our future, and our fantastic staff, including Ms. Darby, for making everything readable, truly readable. So thank you all.
And especially with respect to the Transition Fidalgo science team, we might want to schedule that presentation sooner rather than later to make sure council is briefed on all that.
I'm actually meeting with Eric Shen in the morning, so I can talk to him about that.
Yeah, thank you. Council, anybody else at this stage? No? Okay, then we will move on to our next agenda item. Thank you, Mr. Vokes.
Yep.
City Attorney Darcy Swetnam will brief us on our current Growth Management Hearings Board appeals.
Thank you, Mayor Walters, members of council, and members of the public. So as this presentation is pulling up, oftentimes you get litigation updates in executive session, which is an exemption that's allowed under the Open Public Meetings Act. But there are a number of appeals and some history related to appeals that seems as though it doesn't need to be discussed in executive session and is of interest to the public.
And counsel, if you need to ask an attorney-client privileged question, maybe we hold that for some later executive session.
Thank you, Mayor. Good point. Okay, so, and I apologize in advance for the small and bulk of text that are on these screens, but I was trying to boil this down. And hopefully this can be a useful resource for council as, we move forward, you have questions, everything's consolidated into one presentation here. So there are a number of pending appeals right now that the city is dealing with in the planning context. There are 2 local appeals. One filed by Ian Muntz, appealing the SEPA DNS for the city's stormwater master plan, and one filed by Bill Turner, appealing the same thing. He is represented by Ian Muntz in that appeal. There are 2 cases right now that are before, and I'm going to go through all of these in a little more detail, so if you've got questions, I might answer them. There are 2 cases before the Growth Management Hearings Board right now. One is case 262-001C, and that's Bill Turner and Ian Muntz versus the city. Those are appeals of ordinances 5013 and 5014, which are comp plan and development regulation updates. That consolidates, it says 4, but 2 more got added last Friday, 6 petitions for review, 2 filed by Ian Muntz, 2 filed by Bill Turner, represented by Ian Muntz, one filed by James Benedetto, represented by Ian Muntz, and one filed by Brian Wetcher, represented by Ian Muntz. We also have another case, Growth Management Hearings Board Case 262008, which is Bill Turner versus the city. That challenges the city's alleged failure to adopt the Shoreline Master Plan update. And that petition for review was filed by Bill Turner, represented by Ian Muntz. So talking first about the local appeals. So both of these local appeals are challenges to SEPA DNS that was issued for the 2025 Stormwater Master Plan. And now under section 1804-250B, those appeals will be heard by council at the time that the underlying legislative action is considered. So that stormwater plan will be coming before council probably late March, at which point you all will have an opportunity to make a decision on those appeals. Okay, the Growth Management Hearings Board cases. This is the Western region for the Growth Management Hearings Board, and I just wanted to step you all through the general process. So the Growth Management Hearings Board is a quasi-judicial administrative board that decides claims that GMA jurisdictions, like Anacortes, has not complied with requirements of the Growth Management Act, the Shoreline Management Act, or SEPA. Review is initiated by an appellant filing a petition for review, which has to be filed within 60 days of publication of the challenged action. Within 30 days of the petition for review, the city is required to prepare and file an index of the record that includes all of the documents that are relevant to that particular action. And then the board has to issue its final decision and order within 180 days of receipt of a petition for review. So the big Growth Management Hearings Board case consolidates 2 petitions for review filed by Ian Muntz and 2 petitions for review filed by Bill Turner, represented by Ian Muntz. And again, those are of the periodic update to the comp plan and development regulations. As I mentioned, we got 2 new petitions for review on Friday, which have not yet been consolidated into this case, but the WAC requires that all appeals related to the same legislative action do get consolidated. So I anticipate that we'll get an updated order once the board acknowledges that. Right now, the hearing on the merits is scheduled for June 10th, 2026, but that may change as the court issues yet another updated pre-hearing order consolidating these 2 new issues filed by Mr. Muntz. This would be number 3. We've already done 3, so I wanted to just step you through the issues that have been raised and that we will be working on in this appeal. The first one is related to public participation requirements. And the question is, did the city fail to comply with the requirements of RCW 3670A 140 because it did not provide meaningful, early, and continuous public participation? These are the words that I've lifted directly out of the petitions. So this is the way that the appellants have framed the issues that they're appealing. This issue was brought up in Mr. Muntz's petition for review number 1. The second issue is a challenge to whether the city met the requirements set forth in GMA Goal 4 to plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all economic segments of the population. And this was an issue brought up in Bill Turner's petition for review number 1. So 3 more. So issue number 3 asks whether the city failed to comply with GMA Goal 10, which relates to the environment, when it failed to meaningfully engage in the SEPA process. So that's a challenge to SEPA. That issue was brought up in Petitioner Muntz's petition for review number 2. It was also raised in the exact same words in Mr. Benedetto's petition for review and also in the exact same words in Mr. Wetcher's petition for review. Issue number 4 is whether the city, in adopting its comp plan and development regulations, failed to comply with RCW 3670A 020, GMA Goal 12, when it did not meaningfully did not include a meaningful analysis of the funding capacity for infrastructure necessary to support its neighborhood densification and market rate housing aspirations. Again, this was in Mr. Muntz's petition for review number 2. Exact same language in Mr. Turner's petition for review number 2, and Mr. Benedetto's petition for review, and in Mr. Wetcher's petition for review. The final issue is if the city impermissibly relied on a 2010 shoreline master plan in completing its SEPA review for the comp plan update, and that was in Mr. Turner's petition for review number 2. So you can see from looking at these issues that there are challenges to a wide range of issues related to the comp plan and development regulation update, starting with the public participation plan, our ability to meet housing needs, whether we've adequately planned for infrastructure, and also SEPA. And that's a lot of work to respond to all of that, and it'll be a a significant amount of staff time to defend the city's interest in this appeal. So the next case is Growth Management Hearings Board Case 26-2008. This was again filed by Mr. Turner, represented by Mr. Muntz, and the issue here is whether the city, given that the city is many years behind in updating its shoreline master plan, should the Growth Management Hearings Board find this failure to be non-compliant with the Shoreline Management Act and Shoreline Management Act regulations. So I also wanted to provide you an update because I wanted to talk about the previous cases that Mr. Muntz has filed against the city, which I don't think we've necessarily talked about in a consolidated way publicly, but these 7 appeals that we have pending now are just the most recent in about 5 years of repeated unsuccessful appeals by Mr. Muntz against the city. So I'm going to go through all of those. So he's filed 2 local appeals, and I want to note that there is not a single case on this list that Mr. Muntz has prevailed on. The city's prevailed on all of the issues, on all of the cases. He filed a hearing examiner appeal of the SEPA DNS for Ordinance 4092. The hearing examiner just issued a decision this last week and found in the city's favor. He did file a local appeal of SEPA for Ordinances 5013 and 5014. Council decided that appeal. There were 3 Growth Management Hearings Board appeals. One was of the city's critical areas ordinance, one was of Ordinance 4025, and one was of an email sent by Mayor Miller, which was dismissed by the board's action because that didn't even fit within the types of cases that the board would hear. Mr. Muntz also filed a new action in Skagit County Superior Court requesting an order of mandamus, and that matter was dismissed entirely in the city's favor. There were 2 cases that were before in Thurston County Superior Court, and the reason for that is that appeals of Growth Management Hearings Board cases go to Thurston County Superior Court. So Mr. Muntz appealed 2 of his dismissals at the Growth Management Hearings Board. Staff had to follow that through Thurston County, where those were then transferred to the Court of Appeals. So there were 2 cases before the Court of Appeals, one of the critical areas ordinance, and one that went all the way to the Court of Appeals of the dismissal of Mr. Muntz's appeal of the mayor's email. So it's a lot of cases, and again, I'd like to reiterate, there has not been a single issue on any of these cases on which Mr. Muntz has had an order in his favor. They've all been dismissed. So let's talk about the cost of that. First of all, the Skagit County Superior Court case, we had to bring in outside counsel for that one, and the taxpayers spent $64,000 defending that case. That was paid in 2024 entirely out of the general fund. So most of these administrative appeals we handle in-house to try to keep costs down, but council and the public should be aware of the impact to staff time and the cost for that. So for one round of appeals, and you notice there were, a dozen or more on that previous slide, it's between 80 and 120 hours of my time, and the cost to taxpayers for that is between $13,000 and $20,000 for each round of appeal. The 2 Court of Appeals cases were at least double that amount of time and effort. And I would say that the present case on the comprehensive plan and development regulation update will easily be twice that amount as well. So the rough cost estimate for the city attorney's office for all of Mr. Muntz's appeals since 2020, again, all of them have been unsuccessful. He has not prevailed on any of them, has been $232,000. I want to point out that this does not include the time that the planning department has spent on these. And I would say that for every hour I spend, they probably spend between 50% and 75% of the time that I spend, because they're the experts on those matters. They have to provide all of the information that we then use to move forward in the appeals. So it's so that $232,000 number is just dollars spent on outside counsel and my time, and doesn't factor in the fact that when we're focused on these appeals, as I mentioned with the Growth Management Hearings Board, they have to be decided within 180 days. So we have to drop whatever other things we're doing for the city and just focus on these lawsuits. So the history of appeals citywide since 2020, the city's had 19 appeals total, and 14 of those 19, or 73%, have been filed by Ian Muntz on his own behalf or on behalf of Bill Turner. That doesn't include the 2 that we got on Friday, but those are going to be consolidated into that one Growth Management Hearings Board case. So I bring all of this up. Normally we don't share this kind of information because it's just part of what we do in representing the city, but it's so significant, and with the budget challenges that we're facing, a concern I have is that the legal department doesn't have outside counsel fees budgeted. And if this big appeal ends up moving on to Thurston County Superior Court or the Court of Appeals, we'll have to talk about a budget amendment to find funds to be able to defend against those appeals. So I just want council to sort of be aware that those are the things that are coming up. Those are the things that we've been dealing with, and I am happy to answer any questions. Hopefully not about attorney-client privileged information, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Ms. Swetnam. As always, your defense of the city and the community is applaudable. We really appreciate the effort and the work that you put in to keep us between the ditches, I think, as one wise woman told me. That's a lot of money. And I think it's important that, the public is kept aware, as the right to appeal is, part of the public process that we all have, if there's something that we egregiously disagree with. But with so many, it sort of transforms from a right to appeal to a costing that comes out of all of the pockets of everyone. And to your point that you made, that none of them have been successful. I'm not questioning the right to appeal or even the issue at hand, but it would seem that is there no way for the city, should this sort of at this level continue by anyone, for recovery of some of the funds? Because again, $232,000 is a lot of money. That's already one of the jobs or 2 of the jobs that we had to lay off because we didn't have the money. So when it comes to costing the city to fight a fight, one thing is, believing the fight is justified. It's another thing when the continuation of a fight time and time again doesn't yield the result. My thinking is that you would abandon the pursuit. That's just my thinking, but everybody thinks in their own way. But, you know, I guess what I'm concerned about is that even if we didn't have these people here, others, I just find it hard to believe there's not a recovery mechanism.
It's a really good question.
Thank you.
And I like that you said that we value people's right to appeal what the city does, because that's so fundamental to the way good government should work. And absolutely, I agree 100%. There are provisions in certain types of litigation where you can seek to recover attorney's fees if you're the prevailing party. And the city has typically not tried to pursue that, because we don't want to discourage people from appealing things, because that's part of how you say keeping things between the ditches. But it's certainly something, you know, at the point that there's this pattern of what appears to be using the process to maybe in not the way that it was intended. We'll certainly look at opportunities to recover attorneys' fees and costs. I will say, in my experience, you know, sometimes lawsuits, you spend as much time and money arguing over who's the prevailing party and attorneys' fees as you do on the underlying issues. And, you know, like I said, a lot of these have been handled in-house. So it's, you know, it's been part of staff time, but you're right, it is a significant cost, and I'll certainly be looking at that moving forward and look for those opportunities to try to recoup for the public some of these costs.
Again, thank you for the hard work I know you put in. I've watched you over the years that I've been here, and I'm thankful we have you as our counsel.
Thank you.
Mayor Walters.
Mr. McDougall.
Points by Mr. Young and Ms. Swetnam, very well taken, particularly the point about the right to appeal. I just had a quick observation that outside council number is almost exactly, it's very close to the 1% property tax increase from last year.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Council, any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you. We wanted to make sure that you were briefed and the public was briefed on this challenge. As Ms. Swetnam indicated, we don't have problems with appeals or lawsuits or people exercising their rights in a non-frivolous way, but people who do that generally win some of the cases. So now we are going to go into an executive session for potential real estate transaction per RCW 4230-110 1B. We expect to be gone for 30 minutes, and we'll let you know if it takes longer. Thank you.
The City Council will extend the executive session for an additional 30 minutes. They will return at 8:38. Thank you. The city council will remain in executive session an additional 10 minutes until 8:48 p.m. Thank you.
City council meeting is hereby adjourned.